Imagine a world where there are no man. In the movie, two men, Max and Albert, sign up for a sleep experiment in 1991. When they wake up in 2044, they find that all men are gone because of a failed experiment. They must figure out how to live in a world run by women. Will they fit in, or will they find out more secret? The movie started in 1991 when two ordinary men named Max Paradis and Albert Starsky volunteered for the first human hibernation experiment. Max wanted excitement and a break from his wife and daughter. Albert, a biologist, wanted to achieve something great. They were ready to enter hibernation pods created by Professor Victor Kupelwieser. Professor, a Nobel Prize winner, had successfully hibernated a chimpanzee for 6 months, so the men felt safe. The experiment was seen as a groundbreaking event, could change history. It was announced that the hibernation would last for 3 years. Max and Albert were placed into the pods while the world watched eagerly. However, instead of waking up in 1994 as planned, they woke up in 2044. They had been in the pods for 53 years, but looked the same as before. They thought they were in a facility for post-hibernation checkups and were excited about future fame and rewards. They were kept in a room and cared for by women. Over time, they noticed they hadn't seen any men. One caretaker, Lamia Reno, watched them through cameras. On the 3rd day, they asked to meet Professor Kupelwieser, but were told by Lamia and Dr. Berna that he did not exist. They were informed that a nuclear war had wiped out all men, and the date was March 8, 2044, making them 86 years old. Max and Albert couldn't believe it and thought they were part of a test. They discovered their room had no windows and tried to leave, getting shocked by an electric current. That night, they were upset and confused. Lamia spoke to them through a microphone and explained that society now reproduces without men through a process called parthenogenesis. Women took a drug to control their sexual urges, so men were no longer needed. While watching TV, Max saw that women walked around naked a lot because there were no men. He decided to use this situation to his advantage and try to be with as many women as he could, since there were no other men to compete with. During a meeting, Max kissed Lamia to see how she would react. She got very angry, accused him of sexual assault, and easily knocked him down. A few days later, Max and Albert were called to meet the supreme leader of the women, Her Excellency. They were taken to a special place, where they kept animals and trees from after the war. The meeting, they asked what happened to men and why they went extinct. The women explained that it was men's fault. During the war, Dr. Kupelwieser made a weapon called the M-bomb. It was meant to temporarily paralyze male genes, but it accidentally destroyed them forever, causing the extinction of men. Max offered to help bring back the male population and return society to how it was before. However, the women did not want to go back to the old ways, because they believed men had treated them badly in the past. After the meeting, Max and Albert were taken back to their confinement. Lamia couldn't stop thinking about Max. The kiss had stirred up her feelings that had been controlled by medication. She decided to find the oldest living woman to learn about men before the war. Lamia found 74-year-old Julia and showed her a video of Max and Albert showering. Seeing them naked reminded Julia of her fiancé. She believed that the world should have both men and women. Lamia left with a new way of thinking about life. Meanwhile, Max and Albert, still in confinement, felt very frustrated. Albert saw wires on the floor and made a plan to escape by damaging the electric power grid. They put their plan into action the next day and succeeded. While escaping, they ended up in a room where young girls were being taught how to interact with men if they ever met them. Soon, the men were caught and locked up again. After the trouble they caused, the women were very angry, but they still gave Max and Albert a chance to make things right. They wanted the men to have sex reassignment surgery to become women so they could fit into society. When Max and Albert refused, the ceiling above their room opened, revealing a large assembly of women who were going to decide their fate. The meeting began and went on for a long time. The assembly blamed men for all the bad things in the world and praised their new society. They even claimed that great scientists like Copernicus, Einstein, and Pincus were actually women. When Max and Albert were taken away, the assembly voted on whether the men should undergo forced naturalization or be liquidated. Lamia wanted to have a say in the decision because she was the one who found them in the hibernation pod. The voting took place and naturalization was chosen by just one vote. While the discussion continued, Max and Albert managed to escape again. They wandered through the facility, often getting lost. The women they met had never seen men before and mistook them for other women. Max got distracted by naked girls swimming in an aquarium. Later, they escaped down a waste chute and found a group of women singing, dancing, and having fun. Some were also having lesbian relations, which fascinated Max. The group turned out to be rebellious hippies who did not want to follow Her Excellency's orders. They thought Max and Albert were government spies. Soon, the police came looking for the men, and they managed to escape, but were caught again by Lamia. She told them that their facility was underground and took them to the entrance. Then, using a periscope, they looked at the current state of the surface of the Earth. It showed a dark, rocky landscape with high levels of Kupelweiser radiation, a side effect of the M-bomb. Lamia showed them this to make them stop trying to escape. The officials praised her for her cleverness, but did not give her full control over the men, which upset Lamia. Instead, Max and Albert were handed over to an old doctor named Yanda. Yanda decided that the men's organs would be removed for transplantation, and their bodies would be tested to see if they could be used as food because there was a growing protein shortage. While Max was on the hospital bed, it was revealed that Yanda was actually his daughter. She hated him because he had left her mother when she was young. Both men were strapped to hospital beds and prepared for surgery when Lamia came to help them. She wanted to get revenge on the officials for taking the men. After they escaped, Albert fainted in the elevator from the anesthesia. While Lamia tried to wake him up, Albert dreamed he was in 1994 and that hibernation had successfully ended. When Albert came back to reality, they hurried to the periscope room, planning to escape to the surface despite the radiation. Lamia threatened the guards to give her the code for a capsule that would take them to the surface. The guards said they did not know the code. While this was happening, Max and Albert quickly put on protective suits. The guards said only Her Excellency knew the password, making the three think they were about to be caught. Furious, Max yelled that his mother was a whore, and to everyone's surprise, Absol turned on. Lamia also put on a suit, and they finally reached the surface. As they explored, Max walked a few steps and suddenly hit something that felt like an invisible wall. He used a knife to cut through it and saw daylight on the other side. They all went through the hole and were amazed to find themselves on a beach. The area they saw with the periscope was actually covered by a small, round tent with a painted barren landscape inside. They walked around and soon found a forest. They were thrilled to see something familiar from their past lives, but the suits started running low on oxygen. Max suddenly shouted happily, threw off his suit, and pointed at a flying stork. He said that if the bird could breathe, so could they. They took off their suits and enjoyed the fresh air. Later, they discovered a comfortable villa with fresh food and modern gadgets. They were puzzled about who owned it but didn't think about it further. Instead, they enjoyed a nice meal in the garden. Meanwhile, back at the facility, Lamia's co-worker Emma put on a suit and went outside to search for the three. With only one suit left, the others stayed behind and wished her luck. Emma soon realized that the world outside was very different from what they had believed. Eventually, she found Lamia, Max, and Albert eating in the garden. She aimed her weapon at them but then fainted from lack of oxygen. Albert took off her helmet and gave her CPR, carried her inside the villa, and started removing her suit. Emma woke up quickly and felt a strong attraction to Albert. Max took Lamia to a bedroom and told her about mating. Both couples ended up having intercourse. Later, the girls were in the bath while the men rested in the living room. Max and Albert heard a noise and hid, thinking it was the owner of the house. Soon, Her Excellency appeared from an elevator hidden in a closet. Max attacked Her Excellency and demanded answers. During their struggle, Her Excellency's disguise was revealed, showing that he was actually a man. Her Excellency then explained his story. After the war, the League of Women took control, and he was just a 4-year-old boy. The remaining boys were turned into girls, but he was hidden by his mother. He joined the League to appear more feminine and was later elected as Her Excellency. He wanted to keep the women in the facility and rule over them, though he made the radiation levels seem higher to control them. Max and Albert agreed not to expose Her Excellency's true identity if they could stay in the home with Lamia and Emma. Her Excellency accepted the deal. Later, Max and Albert were in the facility's incubation chamber, dressed as lab workers. They added male gametes to the flasks to create male babies. Several months later, a nurse was shocked to see a male baby among the developed infants. Movie ended here.